Captain Elias Vance had seen the worst parts of the galaxy. He had flown through wars, escaped pirate traps, and survived failed peace talks that ended in flames. He was no stranger to danger. Now he worked alone, flying his old but reliable ship, the Nomad Blade, across the outer edge of human space, taking odd jobs and scavenging wrecks. Most people avoided the Sarn Rift, a strange and silent place where gravity shifted suddenly, where navigation failed, and where no signal ever escaped. It was known as a cursed zone where ships vanished without a trace. But as Elias drifted near its edge, a faint distress signal crackled onto his screen. It was weak, barely there, but unmistakable. Someone was alive inside the rift. He knew. The smart thing was to ignore it. Going into the rift could mean death. But something deep inside him refused to leave someone to die alone. Gritting his teeth, he adjusted course and flew straight into the silent storm. The moment he entered the rift's border, his ship groaned under pressure. Lights flickered. His AI, Luma, warned of sensor interference. Still, Elias pushed forward, following the beacon through shifting fields of broken gravity. Soon, a wreck came into view, an alien ship torn apart, its pieces floating like shattered bones. The hull was curved, almost elegant, silver with blue glowing lines. It didn't match any known species on record. As he drifted closer, Luma reported a single life form aboard. One survivor, she said, trapped in the lower structure, weak vitals. Elias didn't wait. He suited up, tethered his ship to the wreck, and entered. The alien ship was in ruins. Metal hung loose like vines. Fire crackled from torn panels. The place groaned with each passing second. Moving quickly, he followed the signal through bent hallways and finally found her, a tall alien woman pinned under collapsed beams. She was beautiful in a strange way blue-skinned, with long silver hair braided tightly, her eyes glowing with faint light. Her arm bled slowly, and her chest rose in painful breaths. As Elias knelt beside her, she turned her head slightly and whispered in broken English, "Leave me. It is already done." But Elias ignored her. "Not happening," he said. He reached for his servo jack and started to pry the wreckage away from her. Sparks shot out as metal screamed. Every second counted. The ship could collapse any moment. With a final push, the beam snapped free, and she dropped into his arms with a cry. She was lighter than he expected, but weak, nearly unconscious. Elias carried her through falling debris, shielding her from flames and falling panels. Behind them, explosions began. The ship's reactor was going critical. Just as they reached the airlock, the entire structure shook violently. Elias threw himself and the woman through the breach, and the door sealed shut just as fire tore through the alien wreck behind them. His ship jerked under the blast but held firm. They were safe. Elias laid the woman in the med bay and let Luma treat her injuries with autospray and sealed foam. As machines worked, Elias leaned back and wiped sweat from his face. That had been too close, but he didn't regret it. Minutes later, the woman stirred. Her voice was weak but clear. "You saved me." "Yeah," Elias replied. "Couldn't let you die out there." Her eyes locked onto his with strange intensity. "You entered the rift. You pulled me from the wreck. You carried me from death space." "I didn't think about it," Elias admitted. "You needed help." She sat up slowly, her face serious. In my culture, that is sacred. A soul who carries another from death becomes their bond. Bond? Elias asked. What does that mean? Her voice softened but held power. You are now my life mate. Elias blinked. Wait, what? She said it without hesitation. You are my chosen. My husband. Elias stared, speechless, as the alien woman who nearly died now looked at him like fate had decided something he didn't even know existed. He had only meant to help. But now, without warning, he had become something far more important to her something. He didn't understand yet. And as alarms signaled the arrival of approaching ships on long-range scanners, Elias felt something even stranger. This story was just beginning. Elias stood near the control panel of the Nomad Blade, still trying to understand what Selah had just told him. She believed they were now bonded life-mated just because he had saved her from the wreck. He wanted to explain that humans didn't do things like that saving someone didn't mean marriage. But before he could say anything more, alarms blared through the ship. Luma, the ship's AI, spoke quickly. Multiple vessels approaching. Fast. Energy signatures match unknown alien tech likely connected to her species. Elias cursed. Under his breath, he turned to Selah. Are they your people? She stood slowly, her wounds mostly healed by now, and walked toward the screen. Her face remained calm, but her glowing eyes narrowed. That is a Thelari royal fleet, she said. They have come for me. And likely for you. Elias didn't like the sound of that. A moment later, a transmission request flashed on his. Comes. He accepted it, and the image of a stern alien male filled the screen, his skin dark blue, his armor black and gold. He looked directly at Elias, then passed him toward Selah. You carry our princess, the alien said coldly. You are ordered to surrender her immediately. Elias kept his voice firm. She's safe. I rescued her from the wreck. That's all. But before he could say more, Selah stepped forward and raised her chin. I am Sailvara of the Thelari Dominion. I speak for myself. This human saved my life. He is now my bonded mate. The alien commander's eyes widened, his expression hardening like stone. Silence filled the air for a few long seconds. Then the voice returned, sharp as ice. A human? You claim a human as your mate? This is forbidden. He has taken what is sacred. You bring shame to the bloodline. Selah didn't flinch. The old ways are broken. I choose him. The screen cut out. No more words, just weapons locking on and engines powering up. They're preparing to fire, Luma warned. What do we do, Captain? Elias didn't even have to think. We run. The Nomad blade surged into motion just as beams of red energy tore through space where it had been seconds before. The ship danced between shots, dodging blasts with wild turns and narrow escapes. Elias pushed his small ship harder than ever, diving between asteroid fields, hiding in nebula dust, and spinning through gravity currents. The Thelari ships were faster and more powerful, but Elias knew how to fly dirty, and Selah knew how. Her people thought. She guided him through old war tactics, helped reroute power, and even took control of weapons when needed. They became a team, side by side, working as one. Hours passed, and still they fled. Finally, Elias found a quiet patch of empty space beyond a derelict moon, where they shut down power and drifted in silence to avoid detection. In the dark, Only starlight filled the cockpit. Elias looked over at Selah, who sat beside him quietly, eyes watching the stars. "So," he said softly, "we're on the run now because I helped you out of a crashed ship. That's a lot." Selah turned to him. "You risked your life for me. In my world, that makes you more than a warrior. That makes you worthy." Elias shook his head. "But I didn't do it for a title or bond or anything like that. I just didn't want to see someone die." She looked at him with a small, strange smile. "That's exactly why it matters," Elias sighed. "Well, your people don't seem to agree. They never wanted peace," she said. "But I do, and you are part of that now." As the ship floated silently through space, Elias realized something. This wasn't just a rescue. It was the beginning of something much bigger. And ready or not, he was now at the heart of it. Elias and Selah drifted in the quiet of space, hiding from her people who now wanted both of them dead. The Nomad Blade was a good ship, but it wasn't built to outrun fleets forever. Elias worked nonstop repairing damage, checking fuel, rerouting. Power and Selah stayed by his side, calm and focused, helping with things he never expected. She was more than a princess. She understood star maps, old codes, and even advanced engineering. Together, they became a team, working like they had known each other for years, not just days. While floating near a silent asteroid belt, they picked up fragments of a transmission from deep space. Elias boosted the signal, and what they heard made his blood run cold. The Thelari weren't just chasing them anymore. They had announced to their people that Selah had been captured by a human, and that humanity had committed a great insult to the royal bloodline. The Dominion declared the bonding a trick, a trap, a human attempt to gain power over the Empire. They were calling for war. Elias felt his stomach twist. It wasn't just about him and Selah anymore. Now, innocent people back home were in danger. Human colonies along the Outer Rim were exposed, and if the Dominion decided to attack, those places wouldn't survive the first strike. Elias stood up from his chair, hands clenched. "We have to warn them," he said. Selah nodded. "But they won't believe you. Your leaders won't trust an alien princess, and your people don't even know me." "Then we show them the truth," Elias said. He plotted a course to the nearest Human Defense Union relay station. On the way, Selah gave him access to Dominion. Codes, fleet movement charts, war plans, even secret command protocols. Elias was shocked. "You're giving all of this up?" She looked at him without fear. "I said I was yours. I meant it. I want peace, even if it means I can never return to my home." Her voice didn't shake, but Elias saw the sadness in her eyes. He realized then that she wasn't just risking her life. She was leaving behind her entire past, everything she once was. When they reached the outer edge of Union space, a warning beacon pinged them immediately. Ships moved in fast armed, ready to shoot. Elias opened a comm channel and shouted, "Don't fire. I have a message for command. It's about the Thelari Dominion. They're preparing for war." The human ships didn't trust him, but they scanned Selah's DNA and confirmed her identity. They agreed to let them dock at a secure facility under heavy guard. Inside a cold metal room, Elias and Selah stood before two Union generals and a group of government officials. They looked at Selah with suspicion and at Elias like he had lost his mind. "You brought us a Dominion royal who claims she's married." "To you?" One general said sharply. And now you expect us to believe she wants peace? Elias didn't answer with words. He played the recordings, Dominion war signals, messages from the council, maps of planned attacks. And then Selah stepped forward, calm and proud, and addressed the room. I am Princess Sailvara of the Dominion. I broke from my people because I believe in peace. This human saved my life when he could have left me to die. He treated me with honor without asking for anything. If that is weakness, then I choose it. I stand with him and with humanity. For a moment, the room was quiet. Then one of the officers finally spoke. If what she's saying is true, then war's already on our doorstep. The generals exchanged looks, and one nodded. Send. Word to the outer colonies. Prepare the fleet. As Elias and Selah stepped out of the meeting room, she looked up at him. Now you're not just my bonded mate, she said softly. You're the only reason your people still have time to fight back. Elias didn't know what the future would bring, but he knew one thing. This bond that started by accident was about to change everything. The warnings Elias and Selah gave were not ignored for long, because only 2 days later, the Thelari Dominion struck without mercy. A human colony near the edge of the Sarn Rift, peaceful, small, and poorly defended, was attacked by a full Thelari strike group. Homes were turned to fire. Ships were blasted out of orbit. Families who had never even heard of Selah or her people were suddenly pulled into a war they didn't understand. Elias watched the news feeds in silence as images of burning towns and screaming civilians played across the screens. He clenched his fists, feeling a storm inside him. This wasn't just about culture anymore. This wasn't just about a strange alien tradition. This was a real war. Selah stood beside him, her face calm but filled with sorrow. They are proving their strength through destruction, she said. It is how the Dominion gains loyalty from its people, by showing dominance. Elias shook his head. They think fear will control us. But they don't understand humans. We don't run from monsters, we fight them. The Human Defense Union wasted no time. Ships were recalled from distant patrols. Factories doubled production of weapons and armor. Warnings went out to every colony within 20 systems. The war was now official. Elias was asked to speak to the High Command again, this time through a full galaxy-wide broadcast. At first, he hesitated. He was just a pilot, a scavenger, a man with a good ship and a habit of getting into trouble. But Selah encouraged him. You are the reason I chose to break from the Dominion, she said. Let them hear your voice, and they will follow. So, standing in front of the cameras, Elias spoke plainly. He told the story how he entered the rift, how he found Selah, and how he pulled her from the wreck without knowing who she was. He spoke about her people hunting them, and how the bond that started as a surprise had become real. I didn't ask for this war, he said. But if protecting someone I saved means facing your entire empire, then I'll face it with fire, because humans don't back down. The message went viral across human space. Soldiers began painting the nomad blade on their armor. Civilians who had doubted Selah now saw her standing beside Elias with strength and calm. Her image spread like wildfire, a symbol of peace and rebellion both, but with fame came risk. The Thelari Dominion sent a message of their own. A massive warship, the Vengeance Crown, arrived in the system near the rift. It was the largest. ship the Thelari had ever built 10 times the size of the Nomad blade, covered in dark metal, armed with weapons that could crack moons. It was not there to talk, it was there to destroy. Human scouts tried to scan it, but few returned. The Dominion sent a final message, cold and sharp. Send us the traitor princess and the human who holds her, or we will burn your colonies until the stars go dark. High Command turned to Elias and Sala. What do we do? They asked. Sala stood tall. I know that ship. I trained aboard it. I know its weaknesses. Elias looked at her. Then let's take it down. They weren't just going to hide or wait for help. They were going to fight back with everything they had. The war had begun, and now it was time to strike back. The Vengeance Crown was not just a warship, it was a floating fortress, built for one purpose, to destroy anything that stood against the Dominion. As it slowly moved toward the human defense lines near the rift, it darkened the sky like a storm. Most believed there was no way to stop it, but Elias and Sala had a plan. Using old star charts and Sala's memory from her time training aboard the ship, they found a weakness. The Vengeance Crown had a fuel core hidden under its central wings, protected but not invincible. If they could get close enough, they might damage the core and stop the ship from ever reaching the colonies. It was dangerous, maybe impossible, but Elias didn't care. He had risked his life to save Sala once, and now he was ready to do it again, this time for millions of others. They gathered a small strike team, 3 fast human attack ships and the Nomad blade, equipped with new torpedoes, stealth coatings, and a navigation system updated by Sala herself. They moved quickly through the rift, using the strange gravity currents to hide from scanners. The Thelari fleet didn't see them coming. As the massive Vengeance Crown passed through a mining field filled with old debris and gravity traps, Elias made his move. Now, he shouted. The attack ships peeled away, distracting the escort fighters. The Nomad blade shot forward, flying low and fast, almost scraping the belly of the giant warship. Enemy fire rained around them, but Elias flew like his ship was part of him. He dodged blasts, weaved through wreckage, and spun through small openings in the hull. Alarms screamed. Sparks flew. Sila stood at the weapon controls, eyes sharp. Target locked, she called. Torpedoes ready. Elias gave one sharp nod and pulled the trigger. 2 torpedoes launched straight into the weak point Sala had pointed out. They hit the fuel core with a blast of fire and pressure that shook the stars. For a moment, it looked like the ship might survive. But then the core collapsed in on itself, and the fire spread. The Vengeance Crown began to break apart. The engines failed. Explosions lit up the body of the great ship as it started to fall into the rift. But in that final moment, a shockwave from the blast slammed into the Nomad blade, throwing it off course. The ship spun wildly, alarms blaring, systems failing. A metal beam struck the rear thrusters, and the lights went dark. Elias hit the console as they spiraled. Hold on. He shouted. Sala clutched the chair as the ship flipped. Then everything went black. Elias woke up to the smell of smoke and the soft hum of emergency power. His body ached. His ribs felt like they were broken. He opened his eyes and saw Sala sitting beside him, her face full of relief and worry. "You're alive," she whispered. Elias tried to smile but winced in pain. Barely. She touched his hand gently. The vengeance crown is gone. The fleet is pulling back. You did it. He shook his head. We did it. For a long moment, they just sat there in silence, the danger fading away. Outside, human ships were arriving, scanning for survivors, cheering through comms. The enemy was beaten, at least for now. Elias looked into Sayla's eyes and saw something deeper than victory. He saw the bond that had started as a strange custom but had now grown into something real. He didn't know what came next, but he knew one thing. He wasn't letting go of her. Elias lay in the medical pod aboard a Union support ship, his body weak, bandaged, and barely able to move. The battle against the Vengeance Crown had nearly killed him. His ribs were broken. His right arm was fractured, and his lungs had taken damage from the smoke. But none of that mattered when he opened his eyes and saw Sayla sitting beside him, holding his hand. Her usually calm face was tight with worry, her silver hair messy, her glowing eyes tired but full of emotion. "You scared me," she said softly, voice shaking. "I thought I lost you." Elias gave a faint smile, his voice rough. "I'm hard to kill." She leaned closer, pressing her forehead gently against his. "You're more than that," she whispered. "You're everything." He didn't know what to say, but something inside him shifted. From the moment he pulled her from that wreck, everything in his life had changed. What started as a rescue had become something deeper, something real. And now, looking at her eyes, he finally saw what she had seen all along. This wasn't just about tradition. It wasn't just about duty. She had chosen him, not because she had to, but because she believed in him. While Elias healed, the galaxy changed. The destruction of the Vengeance Crown sent shockwaves through the Felari. Dominion. It was their greatest weapon, their symbol of fear, and now it was gone, destroyed by a human ship piloted by a man they had called a thief and a traitor. Sayla's people were divided. Some called for her death. Others, especially the younger warriors and thinkers, began to see her as a leader of something new. Messages began arriving, private signals, encoded requests for peace, for guidance, for something better than war. Meanwhile, human fleets celebrated victory, but the leaders knew it wasn't the end. The Dominion still had power, and they could strike again. That's why Elias and Sayla were called before the human Senate. Still healing, Elias stood proudly in uniform beside Sayla, who wore a new outfit part royal, part soldier, and completely hers. Together, they stepped into the grand chamber where hundreds of leaders watched them. A senator asked, "Why should we trust the princess of a people who tried to burn our colonies?" Sayla didn't flinch. She stood tall. "Because I burned my bridges to stand beside you. I gave up everything to stop this war. My bond with Elias is not a trick. It is a promise. Not just to him, but to all of you." Another senator asked Elias, "And what about you, Captain? Do you trust her with your life?" Elias looked at Sayla, then at the room. "She saved my life more times than I can count. And she gave your fleets the knowledge that helped win. This battle, she didn't have to. She chose to." The room fell silent. Then the vote came. And one by one, the lights turned green. The alliance was approved. For the first time in history, the Felari and the humans would work together, not as enemies, but as partners. Later, as Elias and Sayla walked out of the chamber, hand in hand, She looked up at him and said, still unsure about being my husband. Elias chuckled softly. If this is what being married means, I think I'm getting used to it. She smiled, then rested her head on his shoulder. Good, because I'm not letting you go. And neither of them looked back. Months had passed since the destruction of the Vengeance, Crown, and the surprise alliance between the humans and the Thelari people. It hadn't been easy. Some on both sides still carried hate in their hearts. There were protests, arguments, even small skirmishes caused by old anger and fear. But the bond between Elias and Selah had become something more than personal. It had turned into a symbol across the stars. Where people once saw enemies, they now saw a human pilot and an alien princess who stood together, side by side, not because they had to, but because they chose to. Together, they helped lead peace talks, settle border disputes, and protect new trade routes. But peace never comes without sacrifice. A rebel faction from within the Dominion, furious that Selah had joined with humanity, launched a final surprise attack on a joint colony being built near the Outer Rim. Their goal was simple: kill Elias and Selah and break the symbol of the Alliance. Their ships arrived with no warning, blasting the unfinished colony and firing on civilians trying to escape. Elias and Selah were there that day, visiting the colony to meet settlers and speak at a unity ceremony. As alarms rang out and fire filled the sky, Elias rushed into action. He helped children into safety pods, shielded workers from falling debris, and called for air support. Selah fought beside him, her blade glowing with energy, defending the weak without fear. Then came the final moment. The rebel cruiser descended low over the colony and opened its heavy cannons. If it fired, thousands would die. Elias and Selah ran toward a small defense turret, the only weapon left that could reach the enemy ship. It was old, damaged, and barely powered. But it was all they had. Elias jumped into the gunner seat, Selah beside him rerouting power from emergency systems. We don't have long, she said, sweat on her brow. Just get me one clean shot, Elias replied. The cannon charged, humming louder and louder as the cruiser locked its aim on the colony below. Just before it could fire, Elias pulled the trigger. The beam shot upward and struck the cruiser's front engines. The ship cracked in the air, twisted sideways, and exploded in a massive burst of flame and metal. The people of the colony cheered. The rebel threat was gone. But the blast wave knocked the tower loose, and debris rained down. In the final moment, Selah threw herself in front of Elias and took the worst of the impact. He screamed her name. As they fell to the ground, blood spilled from her shoulder and side, her breathing weak. No, no, stay with me, Elias begged, holding her tightly. She smiled faintly through the pain. Still, your wife, remember? He nodded quickly, tears in his eyes. Always, you're not leaving me. Union medics arrived just in time, rushing them to safety. Selah survived, but barely. She would carry the scars forever. In the weeks that followed, news of their bravery spread across the stars. The final attack had failed. The colony survived. The Alliance stood strong. And now, both humans and Thelari began to see each other, not as enemies, but as family. At the first peace ceremony on the new joint capital station, Selah and Elias stood on a shining balcony, surrounded by leaders and citizens from both worlds. Ships flew past in formation. Children waved flags. a statue of Elias helping Selah. From the wreck was raised at the center of the station garden, not as a symbol of war, but of hope. Elias looked at Selah, now wearing her new ambassador robes, and took her hand. "When I first saw you, you were trapped under fire and steel," he said, "and I thought I was just helping someone who needed saving." Selah smiled. "You did more than save me. You helped me find my true path, and you became my home." He leaned closer. "So, princess wife, partner in everything, what now?" She looked up at the stars and squeezed his hand. "Now, we build a future, together." And as the stars shimmered above them, two once divided species stood united, not by fear, not by force, but by a simple act of kindness that changed the galaxy forever.